welcome back to Three Arcs. This is David, and today we're going to discuss what I've been working on for the last 2 days. As you all know, I've been working for about 5 to 6 years exclusively on the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign, not just the T1 through T4 module, but the epic campaign version of it, which includes all the lands surrounding the temple. I know I repeat myself in every video, but sometimes you get new people that haven't seen this before and they want to know what this is all about, which is basically the epic version of the campaign for the temple, which includes the world of Greyhawk, all the lands around it within like 500 square miles. So I've keyed almost every town in the Viscounty of Verbank. I'm working on the Gnarly Forest, the Wild Coast, Divers, Lord Mill Mountains, and Cron Hills. So the players be more like a sandbox type campaign where they can go anywhere, because you never know what your players want to do. Also, the Temple of Elemental Evil organization, the agents, are collaborating with a lot of other organizations, other tribes of creatures like the Blackthorn Orcs, the Gnolls from the Lower Milton Mountains, and the Bugbears from the Gnarly Forest. You know all those monsters that are keyed in the module, but all it says is Bugbear, then how many are in the room and their hit points? Well, they don't even have names, and the module doesn't really show, and the module doesn't say where they're from. Same thing with the Moat House in the T1 module. So if you're going to run a campaign, you need that kind of detail because you're flushing out the entire world around. And the goal here is to have the players not get to Nulb and the temple before 5th level. So you got to keep them busy. Going to the T1 module, the Moat House, isn't enough to level them up. So what you want to do is build the suspense, layers of the onion, as the players peel back this information they get from interrogating bandits and stomping out the Moat House and chasing after all these other tribes and the quests that I have lined up in the campaign. They'll finally peel back enough layers to get them to Nulb, and that's when they'll take on the temple. The whole idea behind this is the build-up. Lately, I realized as I was working on Nulb, I'm producing that as another module to be released on the DMs Guild. That's also available for free on the Three Orcs website, World Anvil website called the Verbank Campaign Guide 576 Common Year. So you can go there and get these interactive articles and maps and artwork and use it in your campaign. Because I do follow the Wizards of the Coast content policy. This is an ongoing project, constantly, daily being updated, revised, edited, and that's what my Discord channel is for. Other Dungeon Masters that have been running this campaign for 40 years, we're collaborating together on a daily basis for hours on Discord to go over this material. In the last couple of days, I was speaking with Joseph Block and Sam Weiss, and we're discussing the whole Lareth thing. Now, I want to state right here that this campaign I'm working on for everybody to use, I'm trying to stick to canon as much as possible. The goal and idea behind this is to expand the basic module, not to change it. This is not a revised version of it, but it's an expanded version as Gary Gygax intended. Joseph Block, in 15 years of investigation and many blog articles on his website and conversations with Gary Gygax, found out the truth of the matter when it came to the module with Frank Mencher and what the intentions were originally before the module was made and the reasons why it was made the way it was. Anyway, long story short, I'm trying to create this project for everybody to use, to stick to canon as much as I can so everybody can use it and change it as they want to. So that way they can run their own campaign, and at least the material will be static enough on these locations and NPCs and organizations for you to use in your campaign. And then you can pick and choose all you want and just run your own thing. Which is really cool because the whole area is keyed. Every town, just like the village of Hamlet is, every town in the area within 500 miles is too, with all the NPCs, all the shops, all the leaders, the military, all the gods, all the organizations, all the tribes. That's what we're working on every day. Currently, I'm halfway done through Nulb. While working on Nulb, I came to the realization that I have to nail down the leadership of the Temple of Elemental Evil. I already did a couple of videos on that, and some blog articles on my Three Orcs blogger, and also it's on my Patreon. Now, my Patreon is there for you to support me, but I also provide extra material there, like higher resolution maps, menus for the different taverns, different artwork, articles, and the daily progress reports. I realized as I was working on this that I really need to nail down the leadership. I thought I did with that last article I did in video, but then I started questioning Lareth and Uwaz and Loth. The idea behind it all is the fact that the Temple of Elemental Evil and the Second Rising would not happen without Uwaz and Loth. That's because of those two that it's happening. And Hedrick, which is the mouth of Uwaz, he's the supreme leader, and he's the one that's organizing the Second Rising. And so him and others are tricking the minor temples, earth, air, wind, and fire, that they're worshiping the elder elemental god. When in fact, they're inadvertently worshiping Zuggtmoy, who's providing the spells. Pray for a spell in the morning. When you pray for a spell in the morning, God bestows that power, that spell to you to cast that day. You have to worship a specific god to get spells, unless you're running your game differently. In Greyhawk, there's defined deities and gods that different clerics worship in different organizations and churches. So we had to figure out what Larth's doing. Larth's a cleric, and he's casting spells. When I roleplay my game, you know what kind of spells are being cast. I roleplay that up. I actually have used certain words for the type of spell they're casting, so you can tell the flavor of the spell or the god they worship by how they cast that spell. I didn't know what god they worship. So Larth, supposedly, publicly, he's a follower of the elemental god. And that's what the rest of the cult of the temple believes. But secretly, he's an agent of Loth. And that was a big question, how that happened and why. And I've been talking to the guys about that. We came to the conclusion that basically Loth is an agent of, and so is Falrinth, the keeper of the orb in the Temple of Elemental Evil. That so far in the hierarchy that I'll show you the chart of that I created today, nobody else is. So let's go ahead and take a look at that chart. This is one of my pages on World Anvil for the Verbabonk Campaign Guide 576 Common Year. One of the articles is the actual article for the leadership of the Temple of Elemental Evil. It describes in exhaustive detail the hierarchy of the leadership of the temple and its political connections between the different pillars of the organization. We start off with a statement of what this temple is all about and its goals and motivations. Its primary objective is to restore the temple to its former power and unleash elemental chaos upon the Flanaess. Obvious. U's agenda to expand his influence into Thirandi and Viluna using the temple as a foothold. Zuggtmoy's influence is to seek her release from imprisonment while maintaining control over the elemental factions, including the nodes. Let's go about that later. Loth, the intrigue for her is to infiltrate and ultimately subvert the temple for her own purposes and take control of those elemental nodes. The internal struggle is that each faction seeks to gain dominance over the others. Now let's move on to the greater temple leadership. First off, the supreme commander himself is Hadrak. He's the mouth of Uiz. Without him, this temple of Second Rising would not happen. He's the absolute ruler of the temple under Uiz's orders. He ensures that Uiz's influence grows while balancing Zuggtmoy's presence. He's ruthless, manipulative. We went over this before in the previous video. What's different about this chart is if we scroll down past all these leaders of the upper temple, the greater temple, that's I covered last video, I go down to the 4 elemental temples and their leaders, Romag of the Black Earth, Kelno of the Howling Hatred, Alrarem of the Eternal Flame, and I got these names, by the way, from the Apocalypse module from Wizards of the Coast 2014. I didn't like that module that much. It wasn't well done. It was made for Forgotten Realms, but they had some really good ideas. One of the good ideas I liked is the naming of their temples, of the cults. I thought that was really cool, and it gives them more personality. Okay, so down to influence. Now, this section right here is what I changed today, based on conversations I had with Joseph and Sam and my Discord channel. Uiz is the demigod of deceit and domination. He views the Temple of Elemental Evil as a tool to his larger scheme for conquest, while the temple's clergy believes they serve the elder elemental god. It is Zuggtmoy, the Demon Queen of Fungi, who secretly grants their spells. Uiz seeks to control Zuggtmoy's power while using the temple as a staging ground for war against Thirandi, Viluna, and Verbabonk. Remember, this is 576 Common Year. The Great Wars have not happened yet. So Hadrak, the Supreme Commander of the Great Temple, serves as a puppet to Uiz, ensuring the elemental cults remain under control while secretly working to free Zuggtmoy from her prison. So that's key right there. He wants that to happen. But many of the clerics and warlords within the temple resent Uiz's growing power, remain loyal to the elder elemental god. That creates internal tensions that Hadrak must navigate carefully. His goal is to establish a portal between the elemental nodes and the capital city of Duraka to transport Uiz's armies into Verbabonk. Now Loth. This has all been added since my last video. While Uis manipulates the temple from above, Loth, the Demon Queen of Spiders, weaves her own covert network within its ranks. The temple is built upon the ancient site of the sacred elder elemental god. That's Joseph Block, Greyhawk Grognard's T5 module beneath the Temple of Elemental Evil. He's got 15 years of investigation on this whole subject, and I'm going with that. So far, in my investigation, I haven't seen anybody contradict what he decided to do. He did point out that there isn't just one Greyhawk campaign for every Dungeon Master. For every Dungeon Master, there's his own Greyhawk campaign. I get that. So I'm trying to create this as neutral as possible to be used by anybody out there, no matter what version or flavor of Greyhawk they want to run. At least this locations and these NPCs will be useful for you. The temple was built upon the ancient site sacred to the elder elemental god. Loth seeks to ensure that no true resurgence of the temple occurs. She possesses the key to the elder elemental god's prison, making her a critical force in determining its fate. Loth's methods differ from Uis. Where he commands through fear and domination, she operates through subterfuge and deception and betrayal. She has a key. It's some kind of platinum egg, and that's the key to unlocking the Elder Elemental God on the 5th level. Nobody knows about this but her, and possibly Falrith and Lareth. The Elder Elemental God and her are old, ancient enemies. She's responsible for having them chained in the first place a long time ago. Part of her scheme is Lareth the Beautiful. He's a charismatic recruiter working under those direct orders. He was sent to the Temple of Elemental Evil to Hedrick, and Hedrick recruited him as the Rising Star and sent him to the Moat House to conduct activities out there of raiding and supporting the Temple's rise. Falrinth, a wizard serving Loth while feigning loyalty to Hedrick, has the Golden Skull. He's trying to unlock it to free Zuggtmoy and free her, and use those powers to his advantage. All these characters, if I put my cursor over like Falrinth, pops up another article. Everything you want to know about that character, including artwork. A bigger article than this. A pop-up is like a smaller version of the article. If you click on it, it'll open up to a larger full-page article. But we're not going to do that here because this is about this. Lareth the Beautiful, the Spider's Hand. I came up with that nickname myself. Chosen by Hadrak for his charisma and talent in recruitment, Lareth was given control of the Moat House as a strategic outpost for the temple. So, if you look at that, if you think about that, he's got a high charisma, very talented. He's perfect for recruitment, and that's what he's doing at the Moat House. Not only is he raiding with his bandits, but he's also recruiting too, and his charisma helps him do that. That's why he's growing so fast. Secretly, he serves Loth, using his position to redirect Temple's resources towards his interest, or Loth's interest. But there's no actual physical evidence of that happening yet, except for all the supplies in the Moat House that's being built up, which is a fact. Remember in the first 2 rooms to the right, as you go down into the 2nd level, there's those rooms of supplies and military gear, like weapons and armor? Lareth is supposed to send supplies to the Temple of Elemental Evil to help support and supply the Temple of Elemental Evil with resources and slaves. There's a secret tunnel leading into the Temple of Elemental Evil from a hunting cabin, and that's all keyed on the website too, with an NPC and guards and everything, including a battle map. His men are supposed to take all those supplies and slaves to that hunting cabin, to that secret tunnel that leads into room 333. That's how they get supplies into the temple without tipping off the authorities around Nob that things are happening. They're trying to keep everything down low. As soon as anybody finds out, the forces of good will come and stomp them before they're even ready. So they're trying to keep this low key. Lareth's aim is to eventually take over the temple and convert its leadership to Loth. Falrinth, I call him Loth's arcane eye. He's a powerful wizard stationed within the temple, and he's working for Hadrak. But he's secretly loyal to Loth, studying the orb of the Golden Death and researching ways to manipulate the elemental nodes for Loth's benefit. And that's what he's all about. His secret lover and ally, Sigmal Redhand, she's the key commander of the temple's defenses, the top side. She's not really his collaborator or an agent of Loth. She's just his lover and they work together. But she's not really an agent of Loth. She's a commander of the temple's outer defenses and personally placed in power by Falrinth. While not outright devotee of Loth, her loyalty to Falrinth means she unknowingly furthers Loth's goals. So you maintain secrecy. Maintaining secrecy, Loth's network remains hidden, even from Hadrach, Shenshak, and other high priests of the separate elemental temples. Loth agents want to sow discord, spread misinformation, and encourage infighting among the elemental factions, which is easy to do because they're already fighting. Also is to sabotage Uwiz's influence. Falranth and Lareth deliberately mislead Hadrach, ensuring his schemes for Uwiz falls apart. They want to also maintain secrecy. Loth's network remains hidden even from Hadrach, Shenshak, and the other high priest. Now, the hidden war within the temple, which is a big thing. The module does cover that, how the players could take advantage of this and pit the different elemental temples against each other, fire against water. The Temple of Elemental Evil appears united in its goal to bring ruin to the Flanaess. That's outside world. But, in fact, it's a den of vipers with Uwiz, Zuggtmoy, and Loth all vying control. Hadrach struggles to balance these conflicting interests, while Lareth and Falranth quietly worked toward subverting the temple for their own ends. If Loth's plan succeeds, the temple will turn from Uwiz's service and become a stronghold for the Drow followers. If Hadrach maintains control, the temple will be used to free Zuggtmoy and establishes Uwiz's rule over the region. Something this article doesn't cover is if Uwiz is successfully able to free Zuggtmoy, so he's going to be indebted to him. That means he's going to have some control over her and have a close ally in the war to come. If the factions remain divided, the temple will collapse from within before achieving any of the larger goals. And I added some dialogue here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that artwork I was telling you about. Okay, well, this is the chart I've been working on for a couple days. It was a lot of work. I had a lot of questions, and I was asking my Patreon members in Discord to help out. And I asked Sam and Joseph Block, what they thought. And basically what I needed to do is make a chart determining what forces each of the leaders had at the Temple of Elemental Evil. What I needed was a chart that determined the forces available to each of the leaders of the Temple of Evil. Not just the keyed monsters in the module. That does me no good. That's not very helpful when trying to determine what each leader is capable of doing in the campaign as a whole. Because you have all these organizations, these different temple leaders raiding and doing different things. There's different activities in the campaign, not just in the dungeon. This isn't a dungeon slog where you go from room to room killing stuff and looting until you finally get to the big bad guy at the 4th level and kill him. Then the game's over and everybody's 10th level and they're all happy. This is supposed to be a campaign, not just a dungeon-busting slog. I need to know specifically what forces are available to the different leaders at any given moment in the campaign. There's recruitment. Every week, the module states that there's like a dozen new recruits a week coming through Nold into the Temple of Elemental Evil. More than half of them are human bandits, but the rest are monsters like another troll, some ogres, or bugbears. I included them in this chart. And this chart is not every monster in the entire module. Like, for example, the Hydra. Sure, these creatures, these forces will be useful during the big campaign, the big war to come, but they're not doing that right now. That probably won't happen because you're running this module to put a stop to it. That's what the players are trying to do. So what we need to know is what forces these specific leaders have they can send out into the world and perform these different activities, like either going on a raid, putting a stop to something. Maybe they hear something about the player staying in a Nold, so they send some men or some forces out to put a stop to them, or maybe they're trying to intercept something along the high road, or also some of them are actively raiding the merchant roads and the rivers in trying to support the rise of the Temple of Elemental Evil. So we really need to know what forces are available to these leaders for the campaign. If you look at this chart, I'll blow it up for you so you can see the whole thing. You can get this chart on my Discord and Patreon and use it in your campaign. It's great to have all this information on one chart. I have a spreadsheet version of this too that another Dungeon Master made a long time ago, and I modified it. But how useful really is that? You can't print it up really, and you have to go through all these tabs, and you have to have Excel. It's good. It's useful. You can make notes on it, but sometimes you need just this, which is great. Everything you need to know in one image. You can even print it up. I'll put a higher resolution version on the Patreon as well if you need that, if you want to print it up. So, if you look at this chart, at the top you got Uwiz and Zuggtmoy. And on the left is the Greater Temple, on the right is the 4 different elemental temples. Romag, Kelno, Belservernig, and Elrorin. I color-coded them blue, but the ones on the left, anybody related to Uis is red. And I know I must have missed somebody. I bet there's somebody else that's a agent of Uis too, besides Barkanor and Hedrak. And anybody that's a supporter of Zuggtmoy is colored blue, green, yellow. That's just Senshock himself. And anybody related to Loth at the bottom there in the middle is gray. So you got Lareth and Falrinth. And I did a search and I couldn't really find anybody else supporting Loth besides those two. If you guys know of anybody, let me know. I can update the chart and my articles. Because every person on this list has an article on World Anvil. And they're all linked together too. Make great session reports, by the way. If you look at the Greater Temple on the lower left, that's just the Greater Temple forces under Supreme Commander Hadrek's command. And I didn't name them. Some of these names I named myself because the module didn't name them. And I thought it'd be nice to have names to go with some of these key NPCs. Also, the bugbears and the gnolls, there were just nameless bugbears and gnolls in the module. And in the T1 Village of Hamlet, the module goes into great detail how the gnolls and the bugbears got recruited by Lareth. And they're there to serve him. And they might even leave him or betray him. The module talks about this. But there's no detail about them. No flavor. No personality. They should be from a tribe. And where's that tribe located in the world? There should be a tribe symbol. That way, it's a visual representation of who they are for the players. It makes it more interesting, adds a little more depth to the campaign. If the players realize this is the tribe of the Jagged Fang, and one of the players is a ranger elf from the Gnarly Forest, and they know about that tribe in his background, he knows what that tribe is. And they've always had problems with that tribe. And now they're seeing what they're up to. And so it can be possible to add to the play of the campaign as a whole. Who knows what the players might want to do with that information? They might want to go after that tribe and exterminate them. One of the things that says in the T1 module is if Lareth is driven out and he gets away, things change. In fact, under the bugbear, it does state that the tribe will take over the entire moat house. So next time the players get back to the moat house thinking they're going to catch Lareth again, this is going to be full of gnolls or bugbears or whatever the module said. And I think that's pretty funny. Can you imagine 100 gnolls all barking throughout the entire moat house? That'd be funny. But Lareth, he's not going to stick around. He's not stupid. He's going to go somewhere else. There are other temple outposts in the world, as Gary Gygax intended. There's one for fire, earth, water, and air. I got the idea from the Apocalypse. I highly suggest using that module for those locations because they got really cool maps. Not necessarily the monsters, the way it's keyed, but I like the maps, and the locations are keyed on my map. So you know where they are in the world, which is within 10 miles of the Temple of Elemental Evil. The fire is up at the top of the Edders. The stone earth is just west of Hamlet. The water temple is that fortress along the Imridge Run to the north of Nulb. And the air temple is a tower in the Cron Hills west of Hamlet too. Anyway, back to the chart here. As you can see, it's all laid out. I color-coded it as best I can. So all the bugbears are greenish and all the gnolls are bluish. On the bottom right, you have the different commanders of the Temple of Elemental Evil that serve under Hadrek. Feldrin, Falrinth, Sigmal, and King Scorp. You think he'd be out by himself, but if you read all those rooms, those creatures in those nearby rooms belong to other organizations in the temple. As I put their tribe name down, but they're scooting their duty, they're dogging it, they're hiding out, they're having fun. So King Scorp actually refers to himself as a king, and he refers to all these others that are loafing around having fun as his subjects. So I kind of put them together because that's pretty much where they're going to be all the time. You're not going to really find these forces out in the world unless something major happens, like they go to war. And that's where they're hanging out at if the party starts conquering the actual dungeon itself. If you look back at the Greater Temple on the top left, Senshock and Barkanor Digum have their own forces. Romag has the largest, the Earth Temple. He even has the Elemental Earth Reavers in yellow there. That's the hit squad. I need to know what these guys have to run the campaign. If the players get Romag really upset, because he's out in old, players will most likely get him upset, and he can actually send the entire squad of Elemental Earth Reavers after them. It's good to know that he can do that. He's also got more forces there to use. Kelno doesn't have much. They're basically all his just personal bodyguards, so you're not going to see him outside of the temple. Belsorig, the water temple, you're going to see him more in the fort on the river, and the pirates. He's got a lot of contacts with the pirates along the rivers, bringing in slave trade, with connections to the Wild Coast. He has some forces there he could use if needed. He's trying to get those bugbears away. Kelno is trying to steal those bugbears away from him. Elrorim, he doesn't have much going on either. He has a small force there. His most powerful command are the 2 werewolves that could be used to go outside of the temple and cause some trouble if you needed to. But this is all assuming that you're not using the Apocalypse module. So the Apocalypse module, as Gary intended, you're supposed to have other outposts like the Moat House. If you use the Apocalypse module and populate those dungeons as other outposts for these specific temples, like water, earth, air, they're going to have their own men there, their own leader, their own sub-leaders, their own guards, their own monsters. And it's all pretty much keyed in that module. You just got to change it to make it more flavorful and to make it vibe more with Greyhawk lore, because it's pretty much Forgotten Realms, so you have to change it. I don't know if they're going to allow me to recreate it as a module and release it. I'll probably try down the road. But anyway, this is what I've got done so far. Okay. That's what I have so far. Tell me what you think about that. Do you think it's going to be useful in your campaign? Is there anything in the picture that I'm missing, or maybe I need to add or take away? The color coding might be off. You have questions about that? Just let me know down below. Also, you can come to my Discord channel, and we talk about this every day with all the Discord Dungeon Masters that's been playing for 40 years. We have a lot of Dungeon Masters coming in that's wanting to run it again since watching my videos or Joseph Block stuff, and they're encouraged. And especially lately with the 5e Dungeon Master guide out with the Greyhawk support, that's bringing a lot more interest into the campaign world, which is great. That's what we all want. If you want to support my project, come to my Patreon and support me there. And you do get access to a lot more content there, like higher resolution maps and menus for the inns, and a lot of artwork and a lot of different articles too.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It's best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
I'm trying to bring Greyhawk back to life, one article and adventure at a time. May your dice ever roll true.